Get out of abusive relationships. This is something that I see a lot of people do nowadays. They'll sit there and they'll stay in an abusive relationship where the person is physically abusing them, mentally abusing them, emotionally, spiritually. You guys gotta get out of it because it's gonna leave a long lasting scar on your life. When you talk to a lot of deliverance pastors and people who do deliverance, people who go through this type of trauma, it can haunt them for years. It can haunt them for generations. A kid could go through trauma from their parents at 10 years old, and it can haunt them up to 50s. A woman could go through trauma from her ex at 20 years old, and it can haunt her up to 60. A man could go through abuse from his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend from high school, and it can haunt him from his 20s all the way up to his 40s, 50s, and so on. But understand this, yo. Abusive relationships, they leave trauma. And I'm not just talking about marriage or anything like that. I'm talking about relationships such as friendships, marriage, and even relationship with your family members, friends. The list goes on. It can leave trauma in your life. You have to understand, y'all. This is how people develop. This is how people end up hurting. This is why sometimes people need deliverance from the spirit of rejection. They need deliverance from these soul wounds. Because it might not affect you. You can look at a person on the outside. They might seem nice. They might seem cool. They probably got the swag. They probably got the nice house, the nice car, the expensive clothes and all that. But deep down, they might have a bunch of soul wounds from these abusive relationships. People be abused in all types of ways. People be abused through words. You can hurt somebody with your words. People get abused through physical actions. You ever seen somebody, you would say, one time when I was walking the street when I was 17. I remember I was coming from high school. I seen a woman just beat on some guy in the street. Just beat on him. Might have been her husband, her boyfriend, whatever the case was. But she just kept hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. And that's physical abuse, and that can haunt that man all the way up. And sometimes when men are abused by women, sometimes that pain hits deep because sometimes there's nobody there to even listen to them. There's nobody there to talk to them, to counsel them. Sometimes people, they'll take it as a joke. Oh, ha ha, you got beat by a woman. Ha ha, you got beat by a girl. And many people are laughing. But you gotta understand, that person probably got soul wounds. They probably hurt deep down, and yet you mocking them. And that's how the spirits can come in. Spirits of depression, spirits of anxiety, spirit of rejection. Oh, that's how different spirits can enter. Because understand this, yo. The reason why so many people need deliverance from these spirits, right? Because these soul ties, these abusive relationships can take a toll on a person. Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. When you were hitting somebody, when you ever see a man just beat on his woman, beat on his wife, he not just beat on her physically. He not just giving her those scars physically on her body, but he's leaving emotional scars, spiritual scars. And now, that woman might grow up later on in life, later on as her life goes along. Those spirits can easily enter her. Spirits of rejection, spirits of malice, spirits of anxiety, spirit of depression. She might just be like, man, nobody ever want me. Look how he used to beat me. Man, nobody ever want to be with me. Look how that man used to treat me. Oh, I'll never find a good spouse. Same thing with men who got abused by women. Man might end up getting be abused by his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend from the past. He'll grow up and think, man, ain't no woman gonna want me. I'm done with women. Man, that woman used to treat me bad. I ain't never gonna be nothing. You see? And that's how people start to speak negative about themselves. That's how people start to look at themselves in a bad manner. Because all these different spirits now enter in them. They allow these open doors to come in. And that's how the people develop spirits of rejection. And now these spirits can follow a person for a long time. That's why if you've been through this, you need deliverance. There's no way around it. Because it's not just about a person telling you words. A person saying, oh, you ain't never going to be nothing and all that. It can leave an impact on your soul. Because like the Bible says, words have power. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Like I said, this is not just about physical abuse. Because when people think about abuse relationships, they keep thinking about putting hands on somebody and beating somebody up. No. Abuse comes in all forms. It comes through physical, somebody hitting you. Emotional, somebody hurting your feelings, whether that's through words or actions. A man might tell his wife, oh babe, I'm going to work right now. The wife catches him cheating with the woman next door. A woman might tell her husband, oh, I'll be right back. I'm just going down the street to just get food. He ends up catching her in a car with another guy. You see, this is how things happen. These are all emotional abuse right here. Spiritual abuse. And this is how these physical and emotional abuse ties into spiritual abuse. Because not only is your soul hurting when you experience this type of trauma, but like I said, it leaves a scar in your soul. And that's how these different spirits, like spirits of rejection, can come in. And then that's how other spirits can come in too. Spirit of anger. Spirit of malice. People, you ever see some people that just be walking around mad at the world? You know why? Because they probably been through abuse. They probably been through some trauma. This is very serious that we need to take into account. Abuse relationships leaves a long-lasting impact. It's not just something, oh, I got out of it, that person broke up with you, you good now. No. That person might need deliverance. Especially if they're in an abuse relationship for a long time. And you gotta understand, is that so many people in abuse relationships for a long time. You got women who be in abusive relationships for years. The guy just talks any type of way to her. He just keeps hitting her. And she's in it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and so on. You got some of these men. They be with these women. The woman just keeps mocking them, belittling them as a man, making fun of them. Sometimes the woman even hits them. And yet the man just stays in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then the sad part is, this will lead to some people's demise. Look how many times we turn in the news. Man takes his own wife out. Look how many times we turn in the news. Woman takes her own boyfriend out, her own husband out. So understand this, y'all. This stuff is serious. God does not want you in abusive relationships because it's going to end up destroying you. It's going to destroy you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. And of course, we're going to talk about the mentally part. I mean, of course, as someone's abusing you mentally, that's how it can cause people to look down on themselves. That's how a man can start to look at himself like, man, I'm never going to find a good woman. Man, I never find a good person. Man, I ain't nothing. You see, it leaves a long-lasting impact. That's how a woman could go through an abusive relationship from her husband or her previous boyfriend. And she'll start to look at herself and be like, ain't no good men out here. All these men are dirty. No man will ever want me. I ain't nothing. And they just be walking with their head down. These type of relationships take a toll on a person. Always understand this, yo. Never think that this stuff is just simple and just light, because it's not. Abusive relationships take a toll on a person. Especially when it starts when you're young. You ever see some people that just be acting up as adults? Like, where they get that from? They just be walking around mad, be walking around upset. Some of them have such a negative thinking. It starts in the household. Sometimes. They probably went through emotional abuse as a kid. Probably their parents used to whip them bad. Probably used to leave scars in their body. Their parents probably used to physically or mentally abuse them. Their mom probably used to tell them they ain't never going to be nothing. Their dad probably used to tell them they ain't never going to be nothing. And then it leaves a long-lasting impact from childhood to now. Listen, y'all, you gotta understand, man. These abusive relationships, they're not good. That is not the way to be living. If you're in an abusive relationship, you gotta get out of it. If it's your friend, you gotta cut that friend off. They bad news, because no friend gonna be talking to you or handling you a certain type of way. If it's a so-called relationships you're in, and you trying to get, and you trying to court that person as a possible spouse, that could be a telltale sign right there. That person not for you. If it's a marriage or a spouse, you gotta talk to him and be like, listen, we gotta work this out because this is not working. I don't like how you talking to me. And if you a kid, if you a parent, be careful how you handle your kids, man. Be careful, because what starts in childhood could follow them all the way till they're adults. You're supposed to be encouraging your kids. Now, of course, you keep your kids in line. You just don't have them doing any type of stuff. But, you encourage them. Try to do better, but don't be abusing them. Because abuse can follow a child from childhood to adulthood. Always be very watchful of the words you say. Never tell a child you ain't never gonna be nothing, you ain't this, you ain't that. No. All of that ties into abuse. Like I said, abuse relationships is not just, oh, I used to date that person and all that. No. It's in your household. It could be with your family, friends, parents, kids, all of that. It all ties in. Any of them could be abusive relationships, yo. And so many people walk around with these scars and these wounds. You need deliverance. You might need to go on a fast. Fast and pray. Because guess what? What people don't see in you, God will see in you. If people don't value you, God will value you. And if God values you, is the best thing, because He's your creator. He's the one who wakes you up every day. And His opinion was what's going to matter the most in the end. So you don't always need people to validate you. You don't always need people's approval, because you need the ultimate approval, and that's God's approval. Let's see, y'all. What people don't see in you, God can see in you. If people don't look at you as a person, they don't take you serious, that's fine. Because you need God to take you serious. As long as God loves you, and He wakes you up every morning, and God makes sure you got food and all that, that's what's really important. So you don't need nobody else to say, oh, you're never going to be this. No. It's about what God says about you. It's about what God thinks about you. That's what's most important. Not saying we don't need friends, because we all need friends in this life, because even Jesus had the 12 disciples. But you need the right people in your circle. But always remember, it's about what God thinks about you. That's most important. Everything else comes secondary. But how God views you is what's most important, because how God views is what's going to matter in the end. Get out of abusive relationships, because I see too many people staying in them. Get out of it.